Each of these complaints that you give, right, like you could have attacked any of these in a different way. I would like to hear when you decided to make your film or write your film, I would like to hear what went into the creative process of explaining what you specifically took issue with. And I know for yours, like, so I think you didn't have to use fashion photography for your film, right? You could have just used, like, it could have been a day in the life, it could have been a video, but you specifically did, we saw some HD camera, we saw like the camcorder. Can you talk a little bit why like you use the tools that you use to tell your story?
Yeah, I mean, I think if my film is about image and ambition ultimately, then it made the most sense to use the tools of imagery to deconstruct the construction of an image. I sound like a fucking English professor. Yeah, it just use the tools of the thing that you're critiquing to critique it. Yeah.
For me, well, I'm a visual person, and I actually, while in film school, I saw this painting called Ham's Redemption. It's from like 1895 Modesto, and that was like one of the main inspiration. And I chose to drip in this world of samba because it's like, outside of Africa, it's like Brazil's the second largest Black population, but there's these lingos like in Brazil where it's like, there's export Black. And you know, we know about like in Hollywood, the light skin models and all these things like that. So I think I wanted to root it in this, even though samba is rooted in the diaspora and there's all this richness, there's still, when it comes to beauty, this desirability of like European standards, but it's also coming through your mother and her advice that she got from her grandmother. So I really wanted to kind of explore that in that world. So that's why I kind of like set it in this space.
Did you have a connection to samba before writing this film?
I'm a dancer, so yeah, let's samba. No, I'm kidding. I'm a dancer, and so when I was like training, and I learned like samba, but there's like two types of samba. There's like the OG samba from Bahia, and then there's like the Rio samba that you see in Carnival. But it was like samba was passed down just like capoeira, like from the ancestors of like a gift of joy, especially during like, you know, slavery. So this thing that was so rich, it just became the main like export for Brazil. But people, because there's a doc you guys can watch, it's called Too Black for Brazil, and this like sambista won, and the whole like population was like voting against her because they're like, she's too dark to represent us. And they dethroned her, and she never understood why, and they gave it to like a mulata, like a I guess palatable, you know, like it was just wild to kind of see that. So for me, just kind of learning the history of samba and seeing how sometimes it's being used against like, especially the Afro-Brazilians, where it was like left as a gift for them. Like in Brazil, when you go, you see the richness, but when it's getting exported, it's like very limited, so yeah.
Thank you. Well, I actually wanted to ask you a different one, and if you'd actually like to take this question as well, because the three of you use color in a very interesting way. I'll start with you, El Secreto, for now, because as I was watching it again on the big screen, it's a little different. You watch it on the home screen. I do watch it on my TV, y'all, not my laptop. So I'm watching it on the TV, and then still watching it on the screen as large as this is still very different experiences. And so the colors pop more, and I'm seeing a lot of pinks, very neon pinks. And I noticed that the love interest is always wearing baby blue. I want to know like why you chose the colors that you chose to tell your story.
So I gotta shout out my sister Valeria Rocha and our DP Haley Fusia. She colored the film, she did a fantastic job. But I get from the beginning, me and Valeria had a close conversation about being intentional with colors. You know, we pulled from a lot of references, and Valeria really wanted to have most of the scenes have like this kind of dominant color kind of take over to, you know, evoke emotions and whatnot. And as far as like the pinks and the reds, I mean, really me and Parker decided, Parker was the lead and co-writer. We kind of wanted pink ski masks just because we thought they were cool. But the reds, you know, kind of evoking conflict, anger. So we felt like it played really well in the beginning, and then kind of in the end when he's like, you know, you don't really know what he's doing when he's in the car, but there's like this intense red. And even when he gets into the house, it's kind of this split red and blue, which for me shows kind of like this inner conflict. So yeah, that's kind of what that was about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is the color question for me?
Yeah, because there's a lot of greens, there's a lot of grays.
Yeah, so I think for us, it was obviously more muted. There weren't a lot of bright neon colors, except for the green, which was heavily influenced by our location. So that was really helpful. And I don't want to speak on behalf of my wonderful directors who aren't here today, but that was something that came once we got the location. But the muted colors were intentional because we were creating a, you know, slightly dystopian future that was very familiar yet different. And also when you think of their authoritarian or totalitarian states, there's a loss of identity and there's a sense of isolation. And so through the kind of muted color palette, we were trying to create that stripping of any kind of personal self or expression. So that was a reason for the more muted tones.
And for me, first I wanted to shout out Ilka, who played our mother, and what our producers are here. You know, we flew from LA to be here, so thank you for showing us love. We're all welcome. So for me, I love color theory. As you can see, I was like, what? Combo. But the yellow, I wanted to represent Oshun, which is the deity of beauty. And I wanted to kind of reverse it, where it was like, everything related to the beauty product that was like the erasure of blackness was like in the color of Oshun, which is like supposed to be, you know, she's the goddess of like the sweet river, and she represents beauty. And then the shadow version of her was in blue, and our main character Nayeli's, her color was green, and then the mother's color was red. But I gave everyone kind of like their role, but pretty much anyone like. So the girl that won, she was in yellow. So it was like yellow was like this desire of, this is what I need to be in order to win, in order to be desired, or it's like that question, is the grass always greener on the other side? But also the perversion of like, in her mind, she thinks she needs to look like that, where in reality she's beautiful. And it's really sad where some people grow out of it, you know, but others, they kind of live that as their truth. So I really wanted to kind of make it this beautiful, colorful, very feminine world, but still kind of like perversing it in like this thriller. Yeah.
Thank you, that was a
Thank
beautiful
you.
answer. The final question that I have for you guys, and so whether it was just a comedy about how much we hate a specific teacher, there are some that deserve words. Whether it was a comedy of against the teacher, or whether it was a comment on imagery, on how we use it for language, for superficially, I think that each of you still choose, how do I say this? Choose, there's an absurdist aspect to each of them, where we're like, I am supposed to laugh here, but I don't know if I'm supposed to laugh here. You know, I would like to know why you chose the tone that you chose. Are you just like naturally funny and you're just like, I can't help it? Or did you choose to be absurd just so that people can see the way that you want to see the world?
I think most of I would categorize everything I make as a degree of satire. I'm a big fan of the subtext remaining subtext and not text. To me, the comedy is the sort of candy shell that gets to the medicine in the middle, and you can watch it and just be like, that's funny and weird, or you can understand the many layers of subtext in there. Yeah.
Just a good answer. You gotta like serve the honesty with the joke.
So for mine, I would say, yes, I'm naturally a funny person, but I think this one I was kind of genre bending because, we've all seen those commercials where it's like, if you buy this, you're gonna get the life you want if you just totally change who you are. And as you grow older, you're like, dang, that's the thing, that's the product you're putting on your skin and all the so I think for me it was really kind of exploring that conversation, but when it's like in the house, like this is the product your mother grew up with, her grandmother grew up with. So it was just kind of like trying to start this conversation, and truly for me it felt like a tragedy because it was like the erasure of your blackness, and you think, okay, I did good, do you see me now? And I think that's really sad. So I think for me I was kind of exploring what happens if I don't tie it in a pretty bow, like in the end she's like burns it all and it's like, I love myself, and I guess that's the Disney version, but what happens when it stays open, so that's what I kind of wanted to explore with this one.
Thank you.
So I'll shout out my brother again, Parker Whirling, because he brought the story to me 3 years ago. It was based off a dream he had when he used to live in LA, and we had done like a tiny thing on my iPhone prior to this, and then we decided to do this. So this is like the first time we've ever made a short film with this capacity. But when I read his kind of synopsis for his dream, it was way more dark, and like, at least he was bringing it to me as like something that was more of a drama, kind of like a Nightcrawler vibe, if anyone's seen that. But funny enough, when I read it, I laughed because I thought it was funny that this guy was gonna go kill his teacher. And my mom probably hates that I was saying that, but I thought it was funny, and then I think me telling him that I thought it was funny kind of sparked the conversation of like, maybe we have something a little bit more like humorous and absurd, because it is an absurd concept. And then throughout filming, we kind of navigating it, we had to rewrite some stuff, and the final version that you all saw is like drastically different from the final draft of our original screenplay, so we changed the ending, fitted much better. But even those two characters that we added, Frank and Mikey, those were added like halfway through production, and when we went to film with them, they were really good at just like improvising and kind of saying funny stuff, so we ended up kind of scrapping some of like the dialogue that we had written for them and went with what they did, and it was really fun. So yeah, I'm glad it kind of translated into something absurd and funny, because that's definitely, I think, what we were going for, so yeah.
That's a real cool, like y'all were able to take something dark and still give it some levity, so I think that's awesome.
I just want to first shout out the incredible cast and crew that are here tonight. I have some producers, caterers, costumers, everybody, and we filmed like 15 minutes away from here, so very local and very grateful. Our film, I would say, leans on the darker side, so if there was humor to be found, I think I would label it in the kind of discomfort. You know how we all laugh when we're really uncomfortable and like grossed and icked out. So I can't say I walked into this with, I like to think I have humor, but this isn't a reflection of that. But I was thinking about this idea since 2016 and started writing it in 2020, and so I think they were oppressively dark and isolating times, and I think I wanted to, I know it sounds horrible, but I think in some ways I wanted to capture that, and I wanted to experience that through the lens of horror and body horror, and kind of take this issue that I'm frustrated and trying to navigate myself personally and figure out how to manifest it through, like, a monster growing inside of you. And so I think when I found horror in this, it is because when we see something really gross and uncomfortable, we tend to laugh out of our discomfort.